This episode of Old School Sessions is brought to you by Diesel Freak.
All right, so we're back again. We're still in the Holopaw at Smitty's Barbecue. We're talking about DOT, law enforcement, and things like that. And Richard, you made mention of something that was pretty interesting to you, and maybe you other guys will have some thoughts on or stories on what happened when you had a run-in with the law.
Oh, it was northbound on 75, hauling plants, and I wasn't over nothing, but they wanted to give me an inspection. He was inspecting my truck, and he climbed up on the side of the truck, and he saw a scanner hanging there. He said, "You know, those are illegal in the state of Kentucky." I said, "Well, they sell them in the state of Kentucky. How can they be illegal?" "Well, you can't have it in a big truck." So he made me take it down. So I took it down and handed it to him, and he says, "We're going to have to go to town." And they took me over to the magistrate's office. Well, he's at home. And they locked me up in jail. And I don't know how old his jail was, but there wasn't bars on the jail. It was made out of square, flat steel. And it was riveted together. It was like it was made, back in the pioneer days, that steel was like a blacksmith
early.
made, So he puts me in that cell, and I sat there a good hour and a half. And finally, here comes this, sort of like the same problem you had. He could basically let you bail yourself out, but they kept my scan. Mm-hmm. And he says, "You'd have to come back and go to court." And I'm thinking, come back and go to court, what time it's going to cost me to do all that, I'll just let them have it and go on about my business. But then from then on, buddy, every time I got near that scale, they'd pull me in. And sometimes they just come out and look up. Tell me, wouldn't ask me for nothing. They'd just stop me, and he'd walk out there to the scale, and he'd look up at the ceiling. It was like I was going to put another one right back in the same place. Like,
No,
don't you think I'd be a little more creative than
You
that?
take it down anyway when you pull it up there.
But
Yeah.
I remember another time I had that same scanner, and I'm coming back from Tampa. I'd unloaded, and I'm on my way home. And was back there when 4-lane, or rather 3-lane, was fairly new down there by Disney. And I'll go from old Caterpillar in the wind, man, and I'm laid out in that left lane, and I'm just passing everything I can. And directly I hear on the scanner, that big truck in the left lane is doing 75 and 55. And he was describing it to the guy on the ground, and he says he's following the camper, and I was thinking, and all of a sudden my brain goes click. And I said, "Kiss my rump, I'm following a camper." And basically I heard the airplane call down to him, so I just eased on over toward the shoulder, and here he comes. He says, "What are you doing already on the shoulder?" I said, "I heard you coming." And he didn't bother him. That was before Kentucky had taken it away from him. I had radar detector sitting there and all that, but they didn't care about that.
Here at Diesel Freak, located in Gaylord, Michigan, just an hour south of Mackinac Bridge, we offer parts, turbos, manifolds, injectors, fleet service down to your owner-operator. We have customers with race applications. We have a dyno for diagnostics. What we like to do along with our own apparel is make apparel for others as well. Hats, t-shirts, decals, vehicle graphics, from mild to wild for your truck here at Diesel Freak.
Me and you had a couple incidents with the DOT. You remember that time your truck broke down and we was going through Tennessee, pulling your tray, had plants on.
Going around Manchester.
Going around Manchester, and that cop was sitting in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Stopped us, wanted to know what we had on. I had plants on, so he took us over to scale and weighed us and all that. Wanted to see the logbook, and we didn't do nothing with the log. I didn't even log him. We was going to go around him anyway. Got over there, and he called the DOT man out there. And the DOT man brought his dog. And he says, "I want to put some drugs on your truck. While we're out here." This damn cop brought me out here to inspect you, So anyway, he put his dog, and I told him, I said, "Well, just make sure you take your drugs with you when you go." So he said, "What did he get you all for?" I said, "We got us for logbook, We're shut down for 8 hours. Well, how about him? Where's his logbook?" And I said, "Well, he left it in his truck." And the DOT man opened up his trunk. He said, "Here's an empty logbook." He said, "Just back it up for 8 days, and you guys can go on and leave."
I remember that.
Yeah, we went to the truck stop there in Manchester, and that outfit had a truck where a driver left it. So I drove that truck, and you drove mine. We went on in Chicago.
It was an Ashy truck.
Yeah.
A guy had abandoned the truck.
Oh, up there, right there at Manchester.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then another time, you was riding with me. I think your truck broke down, that little freight line or whatever it was, and we was coming across Owensboro, going around the scales, coming down through there, and pulled us over. We was coming down that hill, and they was sitting in the median strip and pulled us over. And, I mean, they were looking for this and looking for that. They was up in the trailer looking for crap. And anyway, I had a gun. You know, I showed him that gun, and he asked me, he says, you think you're the other guy, you think he's got any guns? I said, I'm sure he's got some guns. Oh, Richard, he had one in his case, this, that, and the other, you know. And they finally let us go, and he told me, he says, you come into Kentucky, you take that gun and you set it out where we can see it. I said, okay, you know. But yeah, me and Richard had a couple incidents together.
Yeah, I had to take it out of my pocket.
Yeah.
I got stopped in Iowa. Iowa pulled me in the scale, pulled me out back. I walked inside. And he said, I'm going to give you a quick inspection. He says, if I search your truck, will I find any guns? I said, no, sir, you won't find anything like that in my truck. Other than, you know, you can make a tire tool into a weapon, something like that, you know, or a knife big enough to spread peanut butter and jelly on the bread. He said, you ain't got no firearms? I said, no, there ain't no firearms in the truck. I stand right there, it's in my pocket. I wasn't lying to him, I was telling him straight up. But he told me after that I could go on about my business.
I was fortunate enough in Iowa. I got a ticket from the first woman state trooper in Iowa. She pulled me over, and that's when they had this 55 miles an hour was it saved fuel and all that
Yeah.
they come up with. And nobody was used to that. We're used to 70 and 75. All of a sudden got slow to 55. And I was coming down through Interstate 35 right before Des Moines. And she pulled me over for speeding. 10 mile an hour or something like that. Give me a ticket. And left. And I get on down to the rest area. And there she is in the rest area. And I look on over and there's snow. It's piled 2 or 3 feet in the middle. Plows had pushed over. It was a nice day. Roads were clear. And I seen these 2 state troopers going north. Blue lights flashing, flying. I said, boy, they're after somebody. They were going north. So all of a sudden I look in the mirror a minute later and the woman state trooper's behind me again with me. I said, nah, what is this? So I pull on over. I get on out. In them days you got out. You showed respect. You got out. You don't sit in the truck. So I get on out and I said, I knew you were there. It was on the CB. Everybody knew you were at the rest area. I said, I'm not going to do anything wrong while you're around here. That's for sure, you know. And she says, well, she says, you know, she said my name. Is this you? I said, yeah. By that time, these other 2 state troopers slid in sideways behind me and run up there and asked me the same question, you know. My first, last name, middle initial, yeah. Said, you're going to jail. Oh, that's nice. So anyway, they put me in the back of her car, and she sits in there, and one of the other troopers sat in the front with her, and they're questioning me. So I said, you know, I hate to ask you this, but why am I going to jail? All I got was a speeding ticket, you know. He said, oh no, carrying explosives, and you're wanted for this and that, and you're going to bomb someplace. What are you talking about? Yeah, from Mason City, Iowa, we know your description, your birthday, this is you. So I thought for a minute, and I said, well, if it was me, with bombs and explosives and all that, and I said, and you put me in the police car without searching me, holy hell, I'd never come out of that car so fast. So next thing, I'm spread across the trunk. So anyway, a lot of the other guys, reefer trailers going north, and they're blowing the horn. They knew my truck. They're waving. Put your hand down. They did. Back and forth for a while, yeah. So anyway, they searched me, put me back in the car. And anyway, the guy keeps on going to one trooper. You know, oh, I'm going to jail, and I'm going to prison. I'm done for. And I said, look, I just picked this load up in Dubuque, Iowa. but I could have shot right across through Wisconsin and not even come down this way. I said, you'd have never seen me. If I was wanted in this state, I'd gone the other way, going across that way, you know. And anyway, then the other guy comes back and says, we got checking a little bit further. And the B for eyes, this guy's eyes are blue and my B is brown. That's how close it was. So anyway, the guy says, okay, well, it's your lucky day. You can go. I said, oh, that's my lucky day. I said, I don't care. Because I felt now they were getting over on me, right?
Yeah.
So I said, do you know what I have on that truck? And he just was stunned. He looked at me, he said, no. I said, I got 42,000 pounds of kosher meat going to Miami Beach. And I said, I got a letter in there. The rabbi come out, blessed the meat, blessed the truck, and blessed me. And I said, and I have a letter stating that. Well, I think they just tell jokes in these letters, but it's in Yiddish. So nobody can read it if you wanted to, unless you were Jewish, right? So I didn't know what it said. So I said, and you can't stop me. I said, you can follow me to Miami Beach, but you can't stop me because separation, church, and state, like that. And he looked at me, he was stunned. He said, well, that's the only way you could have got away with this. I was so full of balloon, you know, and I knew I had him, you know. He said, well, go ahead then and get on out of here, you know. And I go, whoa, boy, what a story I told him, you know. And he just stood there and looked about the blessing from the rabbi. I can see the rabbi out there doing all this stuff, throwing holes. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, 72 hours. You had 72 hours.
Yeah,
You had to be blessed again.
Yeah, it had to be blessed again, yeah. But they do, they bless all the meat in the truck and everything else going on. And you have a paper in there, and I think it's just some kind of dirty joke that they're telling between each other, you know. I don't know.
You can't read it anyway.
No, I can't read it. No, like I say, it's in Yiddish. What do I know? You know?
What was the story you were saying about it?
Well, I don't know if I could tell it or not, but anyway, I used to load swinging out of Laverne, Minnesota about every other week. And
That's swinging what?
swinging beef, meat.
Okay. So for the audience that may not have known.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
When you loaded that stuff, you know, you didn't care what the weight was. You'd go in there and they want to know how much weight you want. Well, I put 50,000 pounds. That way they put as much in there to keep it real good and tight.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, you may have to cut this out. But anyhow, I went ahead and I was running on down here, and I got down there to Miami,
Mm-hmm.
down there to the
Mendelsohn?
rabbis, right?
Mendelsohn meat.
Yeah, and anyway, I was there, and it was early in the morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning. They'd come out there and they'd knock on the truck, and he'd have his little beanie hat on, right? And you want to pull up and open your door? And I said, okay. And I tell him, I says, you going to bless your meat? I said, I got mine blessed on the way down.
That guy was something else. You know, Herbie, remember, we used to go there quite a bit, old friend of ours. Anyway, he went there and he said one day, because people go out and unlock their doors and then end up leaving the lock and the key half the time sitting on the bumper and open it up and then forget about it, back in all the time.
Yeah.
This guy had a whole drawer full of locks and keys, right?
Lots of keys.
Right? So he told Herb, he says, oh yeah, I got all these locks and keys. He said, you need a lock and key? So Herb looked there and said, yeah, here's a real nice one. I can use that. Go ahead and take it. Yeah. Herb goes and tries the lock and all it. And opens up. Yeah, that's perfect, thanks. He said, yeah, that'll be $10. Them guys, I'm telling you what, nothing slipped by them.
The swinging meat thing, wasn't that where you was going when you filled that unit tank up with water?
Well, what it was
That's
when
a
I,
little story, I know they DOT related.
when I bought the Kenworth, I had to carry Holiday Express's trailer back. And MCT was supposed to load me, give me a trailer and load me back. Well, anyway, I got out there and they wanted me to drop it out there at Storm Lake, Iowa, right? Well, when you pulled in there, the unit had about a quarter of a tank of fuel in it, right? Oh, you can't bring that in there unless it's a full tank. I said, well, I'm going to leave it. I said, I'm not coming back after it. You guys ain't going to load it. Or I don't know what the deal. But you can't bring it in here unless it's full. And I got to thinking, I said, well, hell, I ain't want to spend my money and put fuel in this tank and leave it for somebody else. So I went to the truck stop, and it was probably somewhere about like, probably about 20, 25 degrees outside. pulled in this little old fuel and gas station and asked that guy if he had a water hose. He said, yeah. So I pulled up there near the garage door and I stuck that hose in there and I filled it up. Went in there and he checked it and he said, yeah, everything's fine. Just back it out there and drop
leave it out there.
Yeah. I imagine it froze harder than a rock.
I got stopped in Wisconsin. I was still driving that brown Kenworth. That hadn't changed it yet. And I was there coming out loaded with potatoes, and I come down as legal. And I pulled up on the scale there at the Madison, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there. And finally, I got out. I just got out, slammed the door, walked over, and said, "Fella, what is the problem?" And they put handcuffs on me. But you know, I'm sitting on the scale still. And I asked him, I said, really? I said, you closed the scale for me? Is that important? He says, we got you driving a stolen truck. I says, how do you mean? What the hell do you mean, stolen? I said, he said, that tag number out there goes to another truck, and the edge was supposed to be on a truck to Kenworth in Edgewater, Florida. And I says, buddy, can you see that tag is rusted, you know? Back then, all you had to do was put them little, it was still a Florida tag. It wasn't under this IRP crap. You know, and we had to put washers on the tag to keep it from, you know, because it had vibrated and been on there so long, it was rot. I said, could you see how long that tag has been on that truck? I says, how else would you determine that somebody else's, you know, to identify a truck if there was no tag on it? He said, we checked the serial number. I says, do you know where they're at on the Kenworth? And he says, yeah, they're on the frame rail. I said, it's the same one is on the back of the cab, is on the frame rail. You can check it. He goes out there and he writes it down and comes back in. And he said, well, the truck's not stolen, but the tag's stolen. Same model cab and everything. And he kept me there for 8 hours. So finally, they've made up their mind that Florida had printed 2 tags with the same number.
Oh, really?
And somehow I got to be lucky when they printed a tag, I guess well after I got stopped in Ohio with that same truck, and I was getting on the on-ramp. I was loaded in Michigan, I was loaded with celery. And I come across there, I was going up there every week at the time. I'd get produce in the summertime, and I was coming back with celery. And I was getting on the interstate. Before I could get to the interstate, trooper stopped me in Ohio. Red light was blinking. And he says, you in a hurry to go somewhere? I said, no, not really. I come through here just about every week, you know, with the same load on. He said, you know how fast you was going on that on-ramp? I says, I think it's about 60. He says, that's exactly right. He said, the speed limit ain't but 50. He said, why were you going that fast? I said, well, last week I hit it at 55, and I said, this week I wanted to see if I could make it at 60. You know, and I said, next week I was going to do it at 62 or 3 to see how fast I could go around that ramp without turning it on. He says, are you crazy? No, I said, I've been only doing this for, you know, the same route and the same routine week in, week out. And I said, you know, I'm up here, you know, 52 weeks out of the year. I'm here every
You're trying that ramp
morning.
out.
I hit that same ramp as you get off over there in Fort Wayne, you know, and come across. I was one time I was late because I broke a torsion bar, but I fixed it. Anyway, he said, who owns this truck? You know, after he wrote me the speeding tickets, you know, he's one for the, you know. He says, who owns this truck? I said, who's Robert Pendleton? I said, that's my daddy. He says, well, do me a favor. He didn't take the He says, tell your man to put some tags on that thing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, the tag on the truck and the trailer is expired by 60 days. And I got home, my old man pulls the registration out and he gets the typewriter, puts it in there, and he goes, takes a copy of it, hands it back to me. He says, here, I'll just give you a new tag. And he did it from then on until Florida went to IRP tag. He would buy a half-year tag, which was 5 months. And when that one expired, he'd change the date on it, take a photo cassette, and a photograph of it, and then get put it back in the truck. And he did it for years.
Didn't you do that with a sticker?
That's it for this episode. So we'll see you guys in the next go-round.
Do you have trucking veterans in your area that would be willing to sit down and recount some stories from the golden days of trucking? Would you like to host a session at your diner or chrome shop? Or would your business like to sponsor an episode of Old School Sessions? If so, follow the link below and get in contact.